In a resort?
Not to me. It's like living in a place that I grew up in. I was practically born here. I came here the first summer of my life, and and my earliest recollection of being on Martha's Vineyard is fainting when I was 3 at the West Tisbury Agricultural Fair.
Fainting why?
Fainting. I was standing on line. It was a very hot day, like it is today. I was standing on line with cotton candy, eating cotton candy, and I must have, I mean, in sort of modern terms, you'd think, well, maybe it was a sugar overload or something. It was just cotton candy and a temperature of 106 in the shade. And all of a sudden I fainted, and the next thing I knew I woke up in a bathtub, and that's my first recollection of Martha's Vineyard. And I was about 3.
But it wouldn't be your last.
No, but this is not, it's not a resort. Well, what is a resort? A resort is a place where people go to take in the pleasant scenes and the water, if there is some, and the air and the mountains or whatever, and kind of conglomerate. But
So
this
people resort to, I guess.
the last resort. This is well, the winter population is about 8,000, and the summer population is about 45,000. So for those, I don't know, how do you subtract 8 from 45? for the 37,000 people who come here, it might be a resort for them, but I've never heard the word resort mentioned in connection with Martha's Vineyard.
So it's not a town that changes in the summer.
Oh, it definitely changes, and it does become. I've heard the word tourism more. It does become touristy in the summer. There are more places which open, which are, geared for tourist trade. There.
Shops with cute names like the Brown Bag.
That's right. And all kinds of places where you can buy leather thonged sandals and pierced earrings and sweatshirts with Martha's Vineyard on them, and things that you would expect to find in a tourist town.
There goes the neighborhood.
What?
There goes the neighborhood.
There goes the neighborhood, yeah. So that, I think that there is a certain amount of resentment between, I feel as if I've been both. I've been both a summer person and a native. And so I can see it from both sides. I can see how resentful the winter people feel when the summer people come and take over their island, and I can see as a summer person how wonderful it is to get up here after a winter of being in a city or just another atmosphere, coming to Martha's Vineyard and feeling refreshed by the beautiful scenery and the easygoing pace.
Do you still go to the city in the winter?
Sometimes, yeah. I've been living in New York primarily. Some winters I've spent in Los Angeles.
Well, it's a nice island. Who's Martha?
She loved grapes at one point, but since then there haven't been many grapes grown on Martha's Vineyard. There's recently a vineyard opened called the Chicama Vineyards, which is the first kind of wine producing vineyard to establish itself on Martha's Vineyard for many years, and it's very young yet, and so the wine is very young, and it has to take a while to age, but I think the wines are pretty good.
Change the subject completely. I've been running into all these people recently who have written with Michael McDonald. It's like a whole club, and yet you had written with him.
I resent that. I'm very possessive, and I resent all the other people that have written with him, as I'm sure they probably resent me, unless they're more open-hearted and have a kind of a wider and more generous view. But I'm jealous. I wanted to be the only person ever to write with Michael McDonald.
What is it about him? It's interesting.
Well, he happens to be a very good collaborator, and also a musician that many people admire enough to seek him out as a collaborator.
What do you look for in a collaborator? You've only worked with a couple, right?
Yeah. I look for somebody who is open-minded, for somebody who, of course, has a talent, because I feel equally at home in writing lyrics and music. So if I get a collaborator who wants to write the music, I'm just as happy to write the lyrics, or vice versa. With Michael on the song that we worked on, he sent me a tape of the melody, and I wrote the lyrics. This is "You Belong to Me" that we're talking about.
Right.
But he's very amenable. He's not such a perfectionist that he's closed to other people's interpretations of how they see his music. I think Michael is probably a stronger composer than he is a lyricist, although he's a pretty good lyricist too.
Yeah, he thinks himself more as a composer.
Yeah.
And then you also work with Jacob Brackett.
Yes, and that's the other way around. I write the music and he writes the words. But primarily I don't like to collaborate as much as I like to write both words and music on my own.
Is there a different personality of a song? Is it still you when you collaborate with somebody?
It is, yeah. I mean, in the instances that I have collaborated, the most successful instances have been my songs with. Well, no, I think any time when I've actually collaborated, I haven't ever recorded the song unless it is a representation of me. So in other words, I've written many more songs with other people than have been recorded by me or anyone else.
Because it's a strange thing. Collaboration to me is always it's a fascinating thing. It's strange, especially when you're used to working alone.
I think it's great to be able to collaborate because I think it broadens your horizons. It opens up your mind to other ideas. It makes you see how other people think. It gives you ideas. It forces you to be less narcissistic.
You mean it kind of shakes you up for a minute because things are being questioned?
Well, it shakes you up for a minute, but it just shows you that your own way is not necessarily the only valid way, or that you can be exposed and encompass a new point of view.
Okay. That works. Are you the kind of writer who do you write in spasms? Are you very disciplined? Is this a writing day, for example? Today's writing day. I'll sit down for 2 to 3 and write a song.
No, I have no schedule. I generally write when I know I'm going to be making an album in a couple of months, and then I sit down and write. Although I am the kind of writer that stops when I hear a sentence that should be in a song, and then I'll write down the sentence, and I'll very often elaborate on that at the next available moment. I listen very much to conversations with a third ear, and focused on the possibility of a sentence coming out, which is what I've been looking for, either my own sentence or somebody else's. An example of that is I was having a discussion with somebody whose name I even forget now, but he said, "What do the people at the end of the world do?" And I loved that sentence, and I asked him what he meant by that, and we talked about it, and I used that line in a song that I wrote called "The Best Thing," which was on my first album. But that's somebody will say something and it will make me think, not only about what they intended it to mean, but about what else it could mean in a different frame of reference, in a different context.
So much meaning can come out unattended.
Yeah. And also other people's music can really inspire me, and I say, well, I want to express that too, but how would I express it? I would express it a little bit differently, or also reading books, or just any ideas. Any ideas are fruit for thought and food for a song.
Obviously, you're reading at night as an end.
What, did you just check out the bookshelves?
Huh?
Oh,
I
you mean
checked
because
out
of Spy in the House of Love?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a book I read a long time ago and was intrigued not only by the title but by just by what she had to say in that book.
It's a great line.
Yeah.
Was there more than that line that you got from her?
Not specifically, no. Um, I hadn't. See, I guess the title Spy was definitely derived from A Spy in the House of Love, because I felt that most of the songs on my album were kind of, a kind of a voyeur point of view. Even looking at myself, even being able to witness myself in the act of loving, in the act of hating, in the act of anything that has to do with love, which of course includes hate, and fighting and drama and passion and even in loneliness. And
So many journalists have said that to be a good journalist you have to be a voyeur in a sense. Applying it to yourself is interesting. It's a sign of a good reporter.
yeah, I think I can report on myself quite well. Although I've been criticized for hedging and not being more specific and not getting really down, a point which I happen to disagree with my critics on.
Well, do you think you are being specific, or you don't think you should be specific?
I think both. I think very often when I'm being specific, it's misconstrued as fiction, and when I'm not being specific, it's because I intend the ambiguity.
So it's as if you have to put in footnotes. I did. Chapter 3.
Yeah, people want. I think in songs more than poetry, people want you to spell it out for them. They want to hear things that are less oblique and more specifically understandable. And like one song which I've been equally praised and criticized for on the album Spy is the song Memorial Day, which leaves a lot to the imagination if you have the interest in pursuing your imagination in regards to that song. But it's a song which doesn't spell out the whole story. I mean, to me it does, because I know all the missing spaces.
You have an advantage.
That's right, I do have an advantage. But even the title Memorial Day is subject to speculation, and why did she call it Memorial Day? And some people are.
Why not Veterans Day?
I happened to write it on Memorial Day, which is why I called it Memorial Day. But I didn't say that in the song, and it also seemed like it seemed to fit the mood of the song. I don't know if you're familiar with that song, but it seemed to fit the mood of the song, since it was kind of about a war, even though it was about a war between two people.
I think you had said, maybe I have this backwards, that your early songs you were writing poetry, and later you learn how to write songs, not taking poems and making songs, but actually writing songs.
Oh, that's just something I said one day, and
It was a great line. Stuck with me.
I'm not sure that it's true.
I guess I could go back and forth.
Yeah, I go ahead and I make definitions of what I am now, and I prove myself to be completely wrong a day later.
That's right.
So I just think now that it's best not to define yourself, or if you are going to define yourself, to not stick to it too rigidly, but to be open to bending all the time, to be open to changing your philosophy. I think that's the best way of growing. I do have a philosophy that in order to stay creative and youthful in your mind, that you have to allow yourself to change all the time. And that in itself is a philosophy that I might want to change tomorrow, but that seems to have stuck with me, and so I do endeavor to keep moving, to keep kind of stopping myself and saying, you're standing still, either on an issue or in a geographical location, or I just try to move forward and not be opinionated.
So in terms of what you write about, I suppose. That would change too. So you should choose writing on.
That the subjects would change, you mean?
Yeah. Just
Yeah, I think the outlook does change. And one thing that's hard about my writing or anybody's writing who is in the public eye is that people assume that it's autobiographical and therefore view it almost like a gossip column, especially in relation to my marriage to James. People try to fit our songs together and sort of weave them together and try to figure out how we're doing as a couple because of what we're saying in our songs that relate to each other or relate to our marriage. So that can be fairly difficult if I want to write a song about, which is a love song about a new love. It's construed as, oh, well, Carly's fallen in love with somebody else. She doesn't love James anymore. Or she's being unfaithful to James or whatever.
But new love is such a great part of life that, of course, you want to write a song about it. Right?
Hey, how come you're not on mic?
Oh, because I'm not on the show.
Oh, you're not in the show. So you're just getting me to talk and then you fit the songs in. I see. Okay.
This fellow Robert W. Morgan does the continuity, which I write for.
Right.
And then when you say something really incredible, in an incredible line, it'll go bam into a portion of the song that will underscore what you just said. You'll love it.
Okay. But anyway, yes, love is of course, a very important part of life. But people, because a lot of my fans know that I'm married and I have 2 children and I live on Martha's Vineyard and I live in New York and so forth, it would almost be more appropriate for me to be writing songs about the glories of married life and the wonders of having of having children. And therefore, when a song like Fair Weather Father comes out, it seems to underrate what I have chosen as my life and to be a kind of a cynical outlook on my part. And when I wrote Fair Weather Father, I was certainly in a very cynical mood, and in a mood where I was angry at James and at the role that I had chosen for myself as a wife and a mother, and feel that I didn't have the liberty to go out and do things beyond the role of a mother and a wife that I wanted to do. And so, feeling confined, I wrote that song. Now that to me was a great release when I wrote that song, and there's a great value in being able to let out your negative feelings when you have them. But if people see that as the overall way that I'm feeling about my marriage, that's an incorrect assumption.
Pretty notable, though. It seems like one of the legacies of the singer-songwriter era is that every song is personal, autobiographical, a declaration of principles, and people do seem to take whatever. I mean, if it's an idea you just want to play with and have fun with, they'll take it as she really believes it.
Mm-hmm.
Could be quite frustrating.
Yeah, it is frustrating to be taken so literally, because occasionally I do have flights of imagination which carry me away from my autobiographical center and allow me the freedom of writing about something which is not necessarily me, even though it contains me, since I'm the person who, since it came through me. But
it's like somebody showed me before I left LA a magazine article that said that your album, Spy, and James's album, Flag, were actually answers to each other. And I don't know if it's true or not. I didn't really believe that.
what was this in? Us? What did it say? Tell me more about what it said.
I'm trying to remember, because my reaction was, gee, that's silly. It was trying to show how the songs on Flag and the songs on Spy were responses, and one referred to the other. They were like messages that passed back and forth, just like in class.
I think to a certain degree that's true, even though it's not something which is it's not something which is thought out beforehand on either of our parts. I think that we write a lot in our songs that we don't tell each other in person, because we don't know how to couch it, or we don't know how to be diplomatic enough to be able to tell each other. I mean, I think that there are certain things about James's song, "Be As You Are," which are kind of telling me to lay off, telling me to stop being so inquisitive and stop trying to pin him down to like a certain image that I might have of him. Richard Perry. Tell him hello from Alan Greenblatt.
You what?
Tell him hello. Tell him that I'm having an interview with Alan Greenblatt. Goldblatt. Gold and green. And tell him that I'll call him back after.
Okay, do you want me to
call him
answer
back.
the phone line?
Sure, yes,
Okay.
please answer it. The only call that I will take is a call from Peru,
From Peru, okay.
from Tommy or Rose.
Okay.
Thanks, Patty.
I mean, entire country of Peru. So you were saying that you took be as you are as you are.
BSUR as a kind of a message to me about, about how I tend to. What? Okay.
He said I'm coming up.
Oh, okay.
Is that good?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, yeah, come on up. There are certain lines in that song which are so well put and so well meant that I take them to heart. And he probably said them in a certainly he said them in a much more anything accompanied by music is easier to take than accompanied by screaming. Be as you are. So it was just a kind of a gentle hint at, perhaps I shouldn't be down his throat all the time about certain things.
That's right. He's a nice guy. Nice guy. What if I was just thinking, what if you've written songs that weren't autobiographical that each of you thought was autobiographical?
That's happened too.
Really?
That's happened too, sure. There have been songs like James wrote a song, "I Will Not Lie for You," which I was just sure I was trying to figure out which one of James's friends which one of James's friends' wives was coming on to him. And I was just thinking, now who the hell is this song about? I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And he still insists that it's just a song that came out of nowhere. And so I have to accept that as I'm not going to start delving like a detective into his songs. It's bad enough to police each other in real life, which is what Vengeance is about.
Aha. I just gotta plug this in. I just get well.
Oh, okay.
I finally got this thing loose. Plenty of Special K. What were we talking about? Oh, we're talking about messages in the song. But when you read articles like that, do you agree? Do you disagree?
I haven't read the article, so I don't know. But
You knew about that.
but I will say that there is material always on James's album which I learned from. And which are kind of little messages about our marriage that maybe I'm seeing certainly not for the first time, but I realize that he is preoccupied enough with the emotion to be writing a song about it. Just as I'm sure he learned from Fairweather Father and from In Times When My Head Was Together About You. I'm referring to some songs on Another Passenger, which I felt were quite revealing. And from Spy, there's a lot about the lonely part of my feelings about being married in the song We're So Close, which is, one aspect of a marriage. I mean, certainly, unless a marriage is multidimensional, it can be fairly boring. And there are parts of our marriage which are very troubling to me as that's the way marriage is, that's the way relationships are, and everything is not always like loving you's the right thing to do, which was on the No Secrets album. Things get heavy, things get lonely, things get troubled, things get it goes through a lot of different phases. And sometimes I tend to write when I'm trying to work out a problem. I think that's quite. I think often writers, artists, whatever, write when they're trying to deal with the problem of their life, trying to figure it out. But so that if more of my songs seem to be on the bleak side of a relationship, instead of, oh, I'm feeling good today, I love you so much, I want to go out and play with you, it's because I'm not inspired to write during those moments of levity, of everything's being okay. I write when there's a problem, when there's an emotion, when there's a passion, when there's a sadness, when there's something which I have so much energy left over for, that I want to go and write about.
You just divert it to the act of writing.
Yes.
Yeah, and I guess when everything's okay, you're too busy enjoying it to want to sit down and write a song.
Yes, it somehow is not conducive to songwriting if you're feeling very up. I mean, nor do I feel very conducive to songwriting when I'm feeling very down. It's when I'm perplexed. It's that mood of being bewildered, trying to work something out, but it's also very often anger. I would say I never write out of depression, but I often write out of anger. Anger and bewilderment.
The kind of person who would write a letter, dash off an angry letter to the Daily News after you get a gas line or something.
No, I don't have enough time for that.
I see. So much of what, it seems like the people who went through the 60s, the attitude that we've had towards love and marriage in the 70s has changed a lot, has grown, altered, redefined. You think it has? I mean, in terms of, say, what you've expressed in your song.
What was the attitude of the 60s?
Well, originally it was a rejection of marriage, of the old social contracts that people had, as I recall. That marriage seemed like a fate.
Something that could not be avoided?
Yeah, a destiny that you would try to avoid. And then came a re-examination of that destiny, and then people did get married with different rules.
Yeah. I suppose there were a lot of people writing out their own marriage contracts and trying to abide by those. A lot of experimental stuff going on. I think that's probably still going on, although we're still too steeped in the traditional points of view about marriage to really let go and not expect a reaction when we do something that's out of the bounds of what we've been thinking of as normalcy for so many years.
It's much more radical than even you contemplate, right? That's definitely.
The marriages that are really radical are very often the ones I've seen fail. I think it's all right, when we say radical, what do we mean? Very often it's an open marriage situation where both members of the couple have other relationships with other people which are known to the marriage, which are open, which are openly discussed. And I've never seen that work, because I think that there's an inherent possessiveness and jealousy which is a part of human nature. I mean, you see it in the animal kingdom too. I know I see it with cats and dogs and with the animals that I live with. It's not a surprise to find it in myself, and I think it's very hard to accept that your mate loves somebody else or spends time with somebody else or makes love to somebody else. So I've never really seen that work. That to me is not viable within a marriage. That kind of saying, well, dear, I'm going to go off and spend the evening with John tonight because I'm really in the mood for John. Sometimes John is really the vibe I need, and I really love you and you understand that, but I'm going off to see John. I mean, if that works for anyone, I wish they'd let me know, because it would interest me very much and I'd write a song about it.
Well, marriages should be closed for repairs.
But on the other hand, I think, I think marriage has many valuable things to be said for it, and I think that there are great problems which this generation is really struggling to cope with. I think the demand, especially on the part of women, for equality between the sexes is an important part of growing up of human beings, but it also poses a lot of problems and certainly threat to the male population. And I've seen more and more men turn toward drugs and homosexuality and strange lifestyles and things which we wouldn't, necessarily consider a desirable turning point. To me, it seems often like an escape from the problems of living together with a woman.
But there was also a reaction of it's affected a lot of women. Just I'm trying to think of what is their identity as a woman.
Right, and then
when slave
and
came out, this is what I was thinking about. That was what was calling slave, and there was like you were worried about all this controversy over the song, whether it would be any. Remember that?
yeah. Well, the thing about that song is it seemed to be an anti-feminist song, in that I was saying, well, I'm resigned, I'm just another woman raised to be a slave. From the point of view of the singer of the song, which wasn't necessarily me, it was a kind of a raising of the consciousness to the point where there was an admission going on. It was saying, okay, I'm a woman, there is a struggle ahead of me. Until now, I have been programmed by my mother and my mother's mother and my ancestors to be a woman in a subservient position. And in the song, it talks about just kind of waiting for a man, waiting on a man, and yet being terribly frustrated by that position of allowing yourself to be, allowing yourself to be in that position and knowing that it doesn't work. So it's a song admitting the frustration, and that's a point of departure. Like once you recognize something, then you can change. If you're blind to it, if you're saying, well, I am very strong, I'm invincible, I am like nothing can stand in my way, that seems like a kind of a grandiose and a improbable idealistic point of view which you can't really move from. Yeah, I wouldn't tend to agree with, I wouldn't be able to identify really with that point of view. The best I can do is to recognize what my position is and to speak from a position of clarity about my feelings about myself, and then saying, oh, all right, this is my position, I'm not satisfied with it, I have to do something about it. I'm going to change.
Because your attitudes are so present in your songs, people were trying to change your mind, they were trying to make you a spokesperson for the women's movement or whatever.
Yeah, people try to make me be a spokeswoman. I'm not a spokeswoman. I'm not a particularly good speaker. I speak best, I think, in my lyrics. And I kind of think it's not a good it's not in my current list of priorities to become a politician for any cause, for the women's movement, which I feel that I have a great deal to say about, but there's a difference between being an artist saying it and being a spokeswoman or a politician saying it. I think Joan Baez is very good at speaking her mind on any issue that she's involved with, and she can articulate her points of view very, very well. I haven't given myself the opportunity to see whether I can do it or not, but it's not something which I feel as if I have to get right out there and do, because there are things in my personal life, and there are things there are things which take priority over that. Perhaps it's having a 2-year-old.
this intrusion. People that say, "Gee, why don't you talk about this in your songs? Or why don't you sing about that?"
Yeah, I mean, certainly people can write songs to order, songs to go, but it's not the same thing as writing a song that that you've been really inspired by, something. I mean, the songs that certainly. Anytime I hear a child cry, I have to stop and just listen to see what there's a follow-up. Oh dear. See, even up in here, in my ivory tower, I can hear my babies cry.
You are getting involved though in a social movement in the anti-nuke.
Yes, I mean I'm very personally involved in that. I wouldn't say that I'm a great spokeswoman for it. I would say that John Hall is a great spokesman for it. I think to be really involved as a spokesperson in a movement, you got to know all the facts. You got to put in time. You got to research everything. My research, as far as the anti-nuke movement, has been in talking to other people who are informed. And I suppose that's how one becomes informed. So I would say that I'm partially informed and becoming more informed. And I'm definitely behind the movement and have done benefits for it, and have even gone on radio shows talking about it as much as I can. But I still feel that one should be entirely sure of oneself as far as the facts in order to come out and speak. I think this is very often the trouble with politicians, is that you're not sure if the politician has actually done his homework. And I want to make sure that if I come out for anything publicly having to do with humanity in a political sense, that I know exactly what I'm talking about.
And the people from the pro-nuclear movement, if you're not right on fact, will use that to trip.
Of course, yes. So it can be used as a deterrent. But I was very, very happy to sing backups on John Hall's song "Power," which has kind of become an anthem for the movement.
It seems to be a spontaneous, homegrown movement. It seems all around the country.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem organized at all, in the sense that.
That's because it does touch on something so personal in everybody's life. It has to do with survival, and it's so present. It's not Vietnam. It's not what you read about in the newspaper happening thousands and thousands of miles away. It's everybody has a nuclear reactor near his home. Everybody has heard what the dangers might be from an accident occurring at one of these plants, and everybody wants to ensure safety for himself and his family. So that's why personal politics are always more effective and more homegrown than if they're started by legislative measures in the Congress or something.
It's a vast target, certainly as vast as the military-industrial complex was in the Vietnam War. I mean, you have utility companies with billion-dollar reactors, and people worried about getting enough oil to heat their homes. Nuclear has been presented as a panacea for 30 years.
Mm-hmm. So not only does it endanger our lives, but it also endangers our comfort. The idea of not being warm enough in the winter, of not being able to travel in our cars, of not being able to do all the things that we've been relying upon for years with oil is a real crisis. At least to the comfortable age as we have known it. I mean, I would be very interested to see how quickly it would take people to get used to living in a less technological atmosphere than we've been used to living in for the last 50 or 60 years or whatever, but to decomfortabilize the society, to maybe go back to horses and carts, and to maybe go back to kerosene, and to kind of move back a step. I mean, people have said it can't be done. That people can't move backward in a technological age, but it might have to be done. And it's strange because there seems to be a contradictory element in it. People say, oh, gee, it was so nice in the old-fashioned days when Ma and Pa would go into the kitchen and they'd light the wood fire and the smell of the wood fire, and we'd go down and we'd eat breakfast of, grits that Ma had been cooking for hours. People reminisce so lovingly and nostalgically about the good old days when everything was at a slower pace and people traveled by horse and cart, and there were cobblestones everywhere and street lanterns, and it was so wonderful. Why then are people unwilling to move backward to that time that they can, that they reminisce so longingly about?
But these are the good old days.
That's right. These are the good old days. But those were the good old days. We might see some kind of, return to those good old days, and it might be just what everybody wants. Or
People want to move backwards, though.
well, that's what I was saying. People don't want to move backward, and yet they constantly have fantasies about how wonderful it used to be when the cities weren't so crowded, when there wasn't so much pollution, when there wasn't so much traffic in the streets, when there weren't so many, quick food places. When I don't know what our society is going to be like in 10 to 15 years from now, but I think that there's going to have to be a drastic change. Otherwise, we're going to see more and more danger to life on Earth. This is a very crucial time in man's history, because there are being decisions made now which are going to affect whether or not we have longer lifespans, or whether life on the Earth is going to be palatable at all.
Right, cool. So they weren't using food to power cars with gas and all. So it struck me as so weird. People are dying in famine, and people want to use corn to drive their Cadillacs. I would suppose, I guess we should have a whole show on this, but I would suppose that development of solar and renewable sources of energy would be a higher form of technology than heating your home with the remains of dinosaurs.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody today about the value in possibly changing some of the slogans having to do with the nuclear, like with the no nukes movement. Instead of no nukes, which implies a negativity, no more nukes, what do we put in its place? Maybe it should be pro-sun or pro-solar, or talking positively about an alternative instead of negatively about an existing form of energy, which seems to be the most popular and, the one which is the most prolific in the nation at the moment.
Well, speaking about the good old days, can we zip back into your girlhood?
Oh, that.
Oh, that.
Sure.
Growing up
Be my guest.
in New York City. You grew up in a real musical household. I heard that your father could put Arthur Rubinstein to Dr. Shane.
He could make him cry. Arthur Rubinstein wouldn't play after my father.
Is that true?
I don't know. I wasn't around. Or I was very young. But that's what my mother says. I think she was very proud of my father. She said that Rubinstein and Verkushny would not play after my father had played. I only know what I heard, and what I heard my father play was the first beautiful music that I ever heard. And he certainly moved me a great deal, and I learned a lot about classical music from listening to him. But it wasn't just the classical music that he played. It was what went into it. It was his heart. It was the love that he had for the music which he played, which was conveyed to me almost more than the concertos or the pieces themselves.
Was your home like a salon with literary lights, the illuminated people of the day coming by?
I think it was at one point, but it was while I was too young to be able to appreciate who the people were, or what they had to say about life, or sing about life, or there were a lot of musicians who used to come and visit my father. He was a publisher, and so he came into contact with people from all walks of life whose books were being published he didn't only deal with novelists, he would deal with people like Albert Einstein when he would put out a book, or with Bertrand Russell, or with Oscar Hammerstein, or with Will and Ariel Durant. I mean, there were a wide range of people who kind of came into contact with my father. And a lot of these people did come to our house on social occasions, and I was told, oh, this very important person is coming to the house tonight. But being 6 or 7, you don't really appreciate that, or you don't care, or you think, well, he's important, and important is the category. You don't know what Oscar Hammerstein has written, or, you're not, I mean, I wasn't a fan of these people at the time that they crossed our doorstep. They were just important people.
I often fantasize what would it like to have a childhood like that, and I realized that, those people would be, either the man who brings you candy, and
That's right.
the man who drinks too much at the party, or...
For my eldest sister, it must have been a whole different thing, because she was in her teens, and certainly a lot more aware of, some of these people had become her heroes, not through having met them through my parents, but through either having read their books or being involved in some way or knowledgeable about their work.
You just enter your legs, you don't have to go.
Right. I don't have to put on makeup or anything.
Do you ever read the press about you? Are you ever intrigued about that?
I'm intrigued, but I've begun to learn not to read past my own name in print.
I fly out here with a thick file from the American Top 40 show. We also do, they save all the newspaper articles, so when there's a song in the Top 40, they can have interesting stories. And what struck me was a sameness, I don't want to be a critic, a media critic, in the way that people perceive you.
A sameness?
Yeah.
Really, how?
Every story seemed to start out with, my God, she's really beautiful and she's really sensual, and her songs are about this, and here's what it's about, and she grew up in New York, and et cetera, et cetera. It was almost like from the same mold.
Well, where
There's a
did
way
you
of
read
relating.
this?
Huh?
Well, where did you read
Well,
this?
Rolling Stone, and a magazine called Hit Parader, and Newsweek, and I'm trying to remember all the articles I read. It was interesting to me.
Really? I wish I'd read more of those. I'm very much a victim of caring too much about what people say about me, and I'm trying to get, I know that's a part of myself that in order for me to grow and change, I have to drop. And in a sense, if you're trying to sell yourself, it's like a losing end. I mean, it's terrible to try to sell yourself, because then you're trying to be a businessman and an artist at the same time. And one way in which I could stop selling myself is trying to care less as to whether I'm sold, but just worry about the musical part of it and put that out. And if people like it, they'll buy it. But stop trying to say buy my music, and stop trying to make music for the purpose of being bought. But just make music from what I clearly visualize. And I think that's what an artist is, much more than somebody who tries to write according to what people want to hear. I don't think that is an artist at all.
No.
I think that is somebody who's trying to work out a jigsaw puzzle to his own advantage.
But everyone always has that problem, because they're working in a commercial medium to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be packaged and sold at some time.
Yes, this is definitely a prevalent problem among people who put their wares out for, out to be bought. And it's one reason why I think artists try to isolate themselves from other people's reactions. From critical reactions from the press, from too many other people's input. I think most people who do put out their put their creativity out on the street are people whose egos really need a lot of fulfillment. And it's those egos that are the most fragile and the most easily wounded when they hear something that's negative. My immediate response when I hear something negative about a song that I've written or about my voice or about my singing is a very bad reaction. I mean, like, my first reaction is to, okay, I'll just stop singing. I won't write any more songs, or I'll write exactly what you want to hear. I'll do, I'll do anything you say. I'll do, I mean, it's like a child in terror of a parent. There's no kind of solidarity of how I feel about myself. I feel completely flotsam and jetsam if I hear something negative about myself. I fly off the handle.
You don't feel that person's crazy?
Oh no, I think that person's absolutely right. There's no doubt in my mind. It takes me a day or two to kind of get a fix on it and not take it quite as personally as that. But I really get so terribly upset.
That's awful.
It is awful. I mean, I suppose it's one of the reasons why I have such trouble performing, is that I care so desperately about what other people think about me that I'm always wondering how everybody's reacting to me, instead of concentrating on the music.
And the song.
Yeah. And that's I think that would be one of my own criticisms of my music, is that I tend to that every record I've ever made has had a concession on it. From my point of view, there's always been like one or two songs which I haven't wanted to put on the album, but which I've allowed myself to be coerced into putting on the album for commercial reasons.
Did they turn out to be monstrous commercials?
No, and that's a lesson which I'm just about to learn. That following my own instincts has been the only way that I've ever really had the kind of success that I want.
Do you get involved in the production of your records? You've been with, you have, I think, some of the best producers I've ever heard of. Are you now in an area where you're taking all that knowledge and, in essence, being a part of the production?
Yes, but I always have, even when I knew nothing. I've always listened to records very carefully, and I'm aware of the differences of sounds that you can get, of the sounds on your voice, of the sounds on the drums, of the sound, on all the different instruments. I'm aware of the parts that every instrumentalist plays. There are some artists who come in and just overdub their voice on top of a track that's been recorded in their absence, and that's one type of an artist. I'm not that kind, because I write my own material and because I'm in on it from the inception of the project. And so yes, I've always been involved in the production, and I've also learned a great deal from all the producers that I have been fortunate enough to work with.
So it must be a matter of synthesizing what Paul Samuel Smith
Yeah.
said at one point, what Richard Perry said here, what Arif Mardini said over here.
Uh-huh.
It's sort of, that's interesting.
And they've all been very, very, very wonderful teachers too, and I've learned an immense amount from each one of them.
Let me ask you more about the early days of growing up. Is there a point where you really got serious about music, or was music just a hobby, something you did with your sisters?
It was pretty much a hobby, of something that I did with my sisters. That we sang around the house. We sang while we were washing the dishes at night. We sang for my parents' parties, and for my mother's rally. She was involved in a lot of political causes, and we always sang at her events. We really enjoyed singing together. We were born with three different kinds of voices, in three different. I mean, Joanna was. Lucy is a soprano, and Joanna is a mezzo-soprano, and I'm an alto. And so we were blessed with having a little small chorus, a built-in small female chorus, with different enough voices that were blendable. And then Joanna went off and became an opera singer, and has had a lot of success at being an opera singer, and Lucy and I pursued a career that was more sort of folk oriented, and where we sang together, and
recorded too, right?
and recorded. Yes, we recorded 3 albums together.
But were you interested? I mean, considering it was just a hobby, I mean, was that a career move? Like, this will be a career, or were we really thinking this is not what I'm going to do with my life? I'm going to be a sculptor.
The way I see it now, and it's just, of course, my own subjective memory of it, and this might not have happened at all. It seems as if I was prodded a bit by my family, and I don't say pushed, I say prodded, kind of gently prodded into going into a professional career of singing with my sister, because it seemed to me that I wanted to finish college, and that everybody in my family said, "Oh, but this is a golden opportunity you have now. You seem to be attracting attention now, and so why not cash in on the success that you're having at the moment?" And so I felt very ambivalently about it, because I did want to finish school. I was only in my second year of college, and I wanted to go on, but at the same time I didn't want to disappoint anybody, and I also thought that there might be something out there that was interesting, like glamour, like success, like fame, like money, like all the terrible pitfalls. So that went out, and we did go out for another year and sang, and then I suppose that my desire not to do it was stronger than my desire to do it, because I developed a phobia, which was a fear of performing and a fear of flying, and so with those things standing in my way, it was pretty hard to continue, and those have been two phobias that have been very hard for me to shake.
Were you writing in those days?
Very sporadically.
Do you remember when you started writing up to a point at a level where you thought, "Hey, I'm a songwriter. This ain't bad"?
The first song that I ever wrote was that I set an Italian poem that I was trying to memorize to music, because I always knew that it was easier to memorize the lyrics of songs than it was to memorize a poem cold. So I took this ragazza di bu baby tu and I set it to music, and I was able to memorize it by putting this little Italian poem, and I kind of liked doing that, and then I started to set more and more poems to music, and that was pretty much the way I got started. And I can't remember when I started to write my own lyrics. I guess maybe the first lyric I ever wrote went on my first album. It was called Alone.
You went to the famous songwriting school.
No.
And then I read, and you also did jingles for a while?
Yes, I wrote commercials. It wasn't a very happy time of my life. But I was. I mean, most people don't believe that I needed money at one point, because they think of my family as being very well to do. But I had a certain amount of pride in asking them for money, and I had worked off all of my inheritance by going to an analyst, and I had spent it all by the time I was 21. And so at the age of 21, I was not a successful musician, and I was working at Newsweek, making $2.50 an hour, writing letters to people whose subscriptions were up, and then I was a secretary for a production company, and I had gained a lot of weight. I hated myself. I was unattractive. I thought that nobody was interested in my music. I had broken up with my sister, and there were hard feelings about that. So I couldn't go back. And there was a period of my life between the ages of about 22 and 26 where I was, completely despondent and had a very low opinion of myself, even lower than it is now.
But of course, everything did turn out. You got to take the jackals for.
That's right.
And the rest is history. What you mentioned people can't believe there was a time in your life when you actually needed to make some money. Albert Grossman had said that no girl from, well, I can't remember, was it Riverdale?
Yes, I did go to Riverdale.
Pardon?
Yes, I went to Riverdale High School.
From that area could, could sing the blues or something, some ridiculous statement, or, remember that?
Yes.
When people say, can someone from any sort of, I hate the term money class, anybody who's come from any sort of background where there was some money in the family and et cetera, when people say that, how do you react?
There seems to be a kind of a current feeling that unless you were kind of down and out and a street kid, that that you can't really communicate with the people in song or in, I mean, I guess particularly in I've heard this in relation to songwriting more than any other area, or to singing. I just read an article in Rolling Stone about Rickie Lee Jones, and that feeling was very prevalent there, that she and Tom Waits were kind of, like really street urchins, and therefore they were the only ones who knew what jazz and blues was. And to my mind, that's just as snobbish an attitude as anything I've ever heard. That you really have to be down and out in order to be sincere about anything, and like in order to have things come from your guts. I don't agree with that point of view, but I do know that's much more, that will garner a lot more sympathy than singing from almost any other point of view, unless, people do think it's real when I sing from the point of view of being an upper middle class kid, and singing about the problems of being a neurotic child, of being raised by nannies instead of your mother, or whatever. People can accept certain things about that, but a lot of people, think that if kids consider me a model, that's a very unrealistic, that I'm a kind of an unrealistic model. Well, actually, what I'm trying to say, what I'm referring to, is a review that I once got from Robert Christgau. I think it was in the Village Voice. I can't remember where, but it was a terrible, terrible review, and it was one of those reviews that I just cried over for days, until I decided to write him a letter, just to tell him that I was a human being too, and to say those things about me, regardless of who my father was and what he did. I mean, how dare he tell me what that I had a blissful childhood just because I had a father with money? How ignorant could he be to assume that just because you have money, you're blessed with happiness and mental health and physical health. And so I wrote him a letter. I didn't say all those things, but I told him how his letter had affected me. I didn't get defensive with him. I didn't say, how dare you. I didn't say all of those things, well, even though I thought those things. But he wrote me a letter back saying that since that time he'd listened to the album more and he'd warmed up to it much more. It was a review of the album, No Secrets, and it was my first really very, very popular album. And he said that what he genuinely felt is that James and I, as kind of models for a generation growing up, were bad models from the point of view of having had too much, and that these people listening to us would aspire to the kind of things that we had, which is money and class, or the things that he assumed that we had, which were money and class and background and education, and he didn't feel that the younger generation should aspire to those values.
So isn't he, being part of the media, responsible for the creation of that model?
Yes, and I wish you would write him a letter and tell him.
I've never met before.
No, but I mean, I do feel in music that there's definitely a kind of a reverse snobbery, and that very often musicians can't accept themselves, can't accept their own accents, can't accept their own education, in their own their own backgrounds, that they have to pretend that there's someone else who was down and out, who was, singing the blues on Bleecker Street, passing the hat, who, I mean, like Bob Dylan is kind of a case in point. He was Bob Zimmerman. He wanted to escape that, like whatever background he was ashamed of, that he wanted to, that he wanted to escape. You don't find people wanting to escape an impoverished background in music, because then you can only be called soulful if you're singing from the point of view, well, I had nothing. I was out on the street. I was bummed out. My parents were divorced. I came from an orphanage. As long as you were there, you're immediately in. You're hip. You're accepted, and you know what soul is. Anything above $40,000 a year that your parents might have earned, you sort of have to make believe that things weren't so easy for you.
People used to say, "How can Janis Joplin sing the blues for $10,000 a night?" Is
Right.
A relationship.
Sure. But it goes along. I mean, the whole thing goes along with trying to sell yourself. If you're that interested in how people are going to accept you, then you're going to lose a little bit of your integrity anyway. And I know that I've lost some of mine by caring too much about what people think.
So it's not a matter of just selling yourself, it's also caring what the response is.
Well, I'm packaging those two things together.
Why don't you hire Elmo Roper to take polls every each album? You can say there's not many reviews. Across sample of America, there's only in cold charts and graphs. Might be interesting. Did success change you at all, when especially after No Secrets? Did it make it easier for you, or did it make it, in a sense, tougher?
It's always more difficult to follow a successful record than one which has been moderately successful or unsuccessful, and therefore to follow No Secrets was very hard for me. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, in some ways, having the success of No Secrets gave me a kind of a newfound confidence. Everything in my life, I find, has two sides. That I can see both sides of the coin. There were definitely things to be gained by having a successful album, and there were also the terrors of success. And will I be able to follow it? Can I compete with myself? Who else do I have to compete with?
The trade-offs along the way.
Yeah.
You're touring now, I think, a little bit more with jazz forms. Is that true?
What are jazz forms?
I guess it's different time signatures and a little bit more freedom and flowing, musically.
Mm-hmm.
Or improvisation, a cooler sound.
Yeah, I'm always curious to know what people think jazz is, because it's been called different things at different times, and different things have been accepted as jazz at different times, since I've been listening to jazz.
Lisa Lecter says that you're experimenting with jazz.
Well, they should know.
Do you like playing around with different musical styles?
Yes, I think I always have, and have been a little bit too inhibited to before. And I think what you're referring to is Memorial Day, and the fact that goes weaves into different places and goes into a more, like it changes rhythms halfway in between, and the chords are not as predictable, and there are some jazz solos by some great musicians on it, and it's a longer piece, and
It's more than 3 minutes and 42 seconds.
that's right. It's close to 9 minutes.
That makes it jazz.
9 minutes, popular music is jazz. That's right.
That's right. It becomes a suite at 15, I think.
Uh-huh.
It's very, very careful. I also learned that what had been mentioned in the press as a disco that you always hear on the island is not really a disco at all.
Well, there are two misnomers in what you've just said. A disco that I own.
You're a partner in.
Yes, that's right. I am one of 3 people who have a financial interest in a club called the Hot Tin Roof, and it's much more a club than a disco. There's dancing about 3 or 4 nights a week, and there's live entertainment on the remainder of the nights, and we try to have a variety of entertainment, even going so far as to switch the disc jockeys on the dance nights. I'd like
philosophy
there
now.
to be. I would like there to be. I mean, next season I think we'll probably expand more. In fact, this Saturday we're having a matinee for kids who are under 20 who can't get in at night, which should be kind of fun. And the acts have ranged from, from soft rock people like Tom Rush and Steve Goodman to harder bands like John Hall and the 24th Street Band, and Poussette Dart is going to be there this weekend, and Delbert McClinton, to reggae. Peter Tosh is coming up, to kind of sort of new wave folk eccentric like the Roach Sisters are coming. So I've had a strong hand in being able to choose the entertainment, although sometimes I've been vetoed by my co-owners, and there have been some interesting fights and differing points of view, but it's all been fun. It's been a learning experience for me.
So you finally made the entertainment committee.
Yes.
This year's dance you'll have.
And I feel as if I'm the social directress for Martha's Vineyard Island.
There have been rumors that you were going to attempt acting at some point.
Attempt acting? I've been doing it all my life.
Were you ever really interested in that?
I am interested, if the part is right, if there's a terrific director who I think I could get along with, if I seem kind of reasonably appropriate for the part. Yeah.
Do you think you could do it? I mean, so it is different than singing or, so.
It's not that different from singing, but yes, you have to work with a lot more. You have to work with your facial expressions. You have to work with your body. You have to work with your emotions in a slightly different way. But I think it would be, as I say, if a part came along that I felt I could do better than just about anybody else and wasn't taking it away from a terrific actress who's been studying acting for 20 years, yes, then I would like to attempt it, especially if it was a musical.
You'd like to write one?
Maybe when Ben is about 13.
Yeah, it would be very time-consuming, I think, to do that.
Yeah.
And to do it well. Well, the one thing that we were talking about writing earlier, we were going to wrap this up,
Ooh, it's 10:05.
is it had to do with when you do songs that you haven't written,
Mm-hmm.
what you look for. 'Cause I guess there's one that Carol Bayer Sager had written.
Carolyn Marvin.
And
Yeah.
Marvin, and that there was one, Dina Christopherson song.
Yeah. I look for either a strong relationship with the person who's written the song, like I did have with Chris at the time, and I loved him very much, and I loved that particular song. And, I felt that I was singing it because of Chris more than anything else, just as the songs that I do of James's are, not so much that they're written for me, but that I feel a strong identity with them. And as in the case of Nobody Does It Better, it was very attractive to me to think of doing a song that would appear in a movie. Plus, the song was so wonderful. I mean, I knew that it was a song that a lot of my fans would not necessarily like because it was a little bit more middle of the road or whatever. But the song did not take itself seriously. It was, it was such an easy song and such a fun song to sing. And I was anxious to go back in the studio with Richard Perry, who I had such a good working relationship with, that there was no question in my mind but that I wanted to do it. It's also easy to go in and do a single, and you don't have to think about a whole album.
It was really fun in the movie. It really worked well.
Yeah, I think it worked great.
Yeah.
I'd like to do some more songs for films.
Do you have any final words for the freedom-loving peoples of the world?
Goodbye.
That's it.
Have a good day. Let me see. I think
It's time.
therefore I shall be.